Well, Azubike Nwokoye, who is the Food and Agriculture Program Manager for Action Aid Nigeria, joins us now in the studio to look at this issue and how Nigeria can really proactively avert a food crisis come next year. Azubike, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And I do know that you're one of those experts who've said that, you know, our 1.11% budget for agriculture for next year is inadequate.
Far below.
You know, if you look at the Malabo agreement of 2014, that of 10% were like just 1%. But beyond budgeting for agriculture, you also say we should create a different fund. Talk to us about that and how you think this should be the solution to the looming food crisis. Okay,
when you compare the new data from the National Bureau of Statistics of the multi-dimensional poverty, you find out that it is also saying that 72% of the rural population are poor. And I mean, then 42% urban poverty. That is quite high for a country. And if you look at that closely, you find out that our investment in agriculture has not really had positive impact the way it should, because rural livelihoods are driven by agriculture in the first instance. And the report is also showing that about 30-something% of Nigerians are facing food insecurity. And if you translate that using 200 million as our population, which we know that it is more than, some are now saying 260 million, you have about 77.2 million Nigerians faced with food insecurity. That is quite high. And within that, you have about 57.4 Nigerians faced with nutrition security. So you have child stunting and so on and so forth.
Azubike, the data is out there. Yes. We're looking for solutions.
So the solution is to create an emergency fund for agriculture to tackle these challenges. The 2023 proposed agriculture budget is just 228 billion. It cannot do that. Now, also remember that this survey from MBS was conducted between November 2021 and February 2022. A lot of things have changed. By the time you add the massive floods that we've had the last few months, you know, a lot of it is more than this. So probably more than half of the population are really poor. So we need an emergency fund that will start intervening immediately so that people can recover. The government needs to also strategically mop up excesses from areas that floods were not affected to also support in redistribution across Nigeria so that we can avert the food crisis. We need an emergency fund outside the 2023 agriculture budget. And mind you, the 2022 agriculture budget is still running. Implementation within that started around June, July or so. So it is really slow. It's not a system that can really help us get out of this quagmire. So we need a separate emergency budget that can really support farmers to get back to their feet.
Azubike, one question or what troubles a lot of people is not just the fact of the 133 million Nigerians that have slipped into poverty, is the multi-dimensional, you know, angle of the poverty. That is the poor becoming really poorer, and even the urban percentage you talked about, not knowing that they are, that they are even, you know, slipped into that bracket. But what are the consequences, you know, of this food insecurity with such a population that is into poverty and the multi-dimensional aspect of it?
You guys just finished a news bulletin and discussions around banditry. It will continue to fuel insecurity. I mean, our educational system is further going down. So if we don't do something quick, and the truth is that the agriculture sector has the potential of pulling people out of poverty, you know, so investment needs to go to those key areas in the agriculture sector. So it is going to affect our education further. It is going to affect our health, because when people don't eat well, when they don't eat nutritious food, they fall more sick. You know, if you don't eat well, to assimilate during learning will be difficult also. And you need to have food first before you are able to think about even going to school. So it is multidimensional, and agriculture can actually stop that. We need to increase investment in the agriculture sector in specific key areas of extension services, labor-saving technology, reducing post-harvest losses, which is at 3.5
which is critical. It is critical.
3.5 trillion naira annually. That alone, even if you focus on reducing post-harvest losses, that will do a lot for our economy. So the agriculture sector needs an emergency fund to avert the looming food crisis. Remember, by the time the Russia-Ukraine war was starting, you know, we didn't know that that our agriculture sector is that vulnerable, because we were importing 95% of our wheat. And you cannot, you know, the price of bread now in the market, how it has really gone up. We are suffering from even access to fertilizer because of the war also. So a lot of things need to be done for the agriculture sector.
Right. A lot of people would argue that even before the war in Ukraine, COVID-19 should have opened Nigeria's eyes to the fact that, you know what, you have to do better. And with over 37% arable land, Nigeria has no business importing food, but instead we can grow what we eat. But over the years, agriculture, yes, it still contributes a huge chunk to our GDP, but in small numbers, because those smallholder farmers that make up to 80% of our farmers are not doing enough really to, you know, assuage our hunger situation.
Because they are not getting enough support from the government.
What sort
the
of
government
support
is not creating the enabling environment.
The government will say there's the Anchor Borers Fund from the CBN. There's a Bank of Agriculture to help support
farmers. Bank of Agriculture recapitalization had started since over 2 years ago. If you approach them now that you want money, they don't have money. They say they don't have money to give. So those are the issues. You know, if you talk about Anchor Borer program, it is riddled with its own challenges also. So we need to rethink about how we invest.
So you agree with me that it's not a lack of funds, it's the fact that to channel the funds in the right direction is probably the issue here.
It is both lack of funds and the targeting. The funding is quite small. The targeting most of the time is also wrong. The agriculture sector, like every other sector in Nigeria, is also faced with a large elite capture. You know, if you see the amount that central banks reels out every year that they had, that farmers had access support, smallholder farmers in Nigeria, maybe through the Agriculture Credit Guarantee Scheme Fund or through the Agriculture Commercial Credit Scheme and so on. By the time you get to rural communities, you are not seeing one single farmer from those communities who had benefited. So it's subject to elite capture. And they are giving out that money. And why are people owing Bank of Agriculture? Because most times it was not farmers that got the money. It was because it was political elites that engaged the bank, muzzle them, give these people credit without them being farmers. So they don't end up paying. So the recapitalization that the government had committed to is even too slow. They need to ought to have done it if we are serious. Smallholder women farmers have access to only 23% of credit in Nigeria across 36 states and FCT. That is quite low. Access to agricultural insurance itself is less than 5%, meaning that every farmer, most of the farmers that lost their farmlands to flood will not get compensation. So we need to really be serious in terms of targeting. You know, the processing facilities is access is just about 18% across the states, across Nigeria, for smallholder women farmers.
In all of this, it's all about the government and its agricultural guaranteed schemes that you're talking, and how slow they are able to impact
how targeting. And funny enough, the central bank is doing Anchor Borers program. The Federal Ministry of Agriculture is not in charge. So how can the central bank, nobody is supervising the central bank also? It is totally wrong. They are even usurping the power of this of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development.
I was just coming to talk about the commercial banks. You know, when we talk about agricultural, financial guaranteed or loan schemes, you know, that are guaranteed and the rest. Where are they in all of this? You know,
yes.
They really, is it because of the interest rates? Is it because the quick turnover? They are looking their own profits and the rest, and they are not talking of the medium and the long-term development of this sector that can really regenerate the entire developmental indices of the country.
Okay, so what is happening is this: they are not strategic in the interventions. Now, we did expenditure analysis and community scorecard on access to credit a few years ago, and what we discovered is the same elite capture. Now, commercial banks and microfinance banks, they have these facilities, but they are not given to real farmers. So they divert it to other businesses and so on. And even the small farmers they want to give, they take them through processes. Okay, imagine a group of farmers. Let's say they are coming to the capital here. I mean, they are coming from Kwali, and they are coming to access credit in Bank of Agriculture. And they travel from that far and come, leaving their farm and everything. And they come the first day, they couldn't get a good response. Second day, third day, they quickly get tired. And nobody is helping them to say
nobody is
helping them to say this is how you fill your form, this is how you prepare your business proposals. They are not getting that support. So what we are even saying is that the government should be strategic. Recently, the FMAT committed to that because we're asking them, please get a consultancy firm or team of experts to help these smallholder women farmers cooperative, youth cooperative to design their business proposals, do their feasibility study, help them interface with the banks, and handhold them through the cycle.
What you're saying is the solution has to be all-encompassing,
yes.
so that way it trickles down.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, as we're looking at this new data from the NBS that says 63% of Nigerians are poor, meaning hunger, which we already have a bad data. If you look at the fact that over 10% of children will die before the age of 5 due to hunger in Nigeria, the data quite troubling. But now with this looming food crisis that we have been warned, what is the immediate thing that the government should be doing so we're not seeing people drop dead on the streets due to hunger?
So when we say the government should create an emergency fund for agriculture outside the budget process, we don't want any red tape bottleneck to distort that, so that interventions can start immediately by providing farmers early maturing seedlings, early maturing seeds. They also, part of that budget, use it to, because now there are places that are actually having excess, having glut, that they don't even have market. The floods did not affect them. But because
the
access to market,
are not there.
Yes, because I mean, access to transportation is less than 10% across Nigeria. So the government needs to rethink and immediately move to the field, mop up from the other areas, mop up, provide early maturing seeds, early maturing seedlings
for commodities that are not, easily perishable. What happens to the perishable ones?
So that's why we are saying that post-harvest losses need to be targeted and reduced. Small cooling systems and so on. Small processing facilities and so on. So it has to be strategic, and it has to take. It has to be determined, and we hope that the politicians are using these statistics to really tell us what they will be doing, not rhetorics. Because we are in a bad situation. So it goes
beyond releasing 12,000 metric tons of grains. We need to do more. As we have to say thank you so much for joining us tonight on the program. Well, Christian?